The next animation property that we're going to be looking at is the animation playstate property. This specifies whether a CSS animation is running or paused. When an animation is paused, the animation continues to apply to the element with the progress it had made before being paused. So whatever values the animation has reached, it's still going to be applied to the element while the animation is actually paused. When you unpause it, you set it back to running and it restarts from right where it left off. It's as if the clock that controls the animation has stopped, and then when we reinitiate it, it starts again. So let me show you what we're going to be creating. Here I have the starburst, and when you hover over it, you can see that it starts to rotate. As soon as my mouse exits the object, it pauses at that particular state, and then when I hover, it starts to pick up at that particular state again. So you can see that we're actually pausing the animation at this particular point in time. And this is being done purely with CSS. There's no JavaScript that is controlling this. So let's look at how we can apply the animation play state to an object. Here's the file that we're going to be working with. I have a div with a class of starburst, and I'm creating the starburst shape purely from CSS. Here I have some general rules on my starburst class, and then what's actually happening to create the starburst shape is I'm using the before and after pseudo classes, and I'm actually creating a new element via the pseudo classes, and then I'm just simply rotating those elements 30 degrees and negative 30 degrees. So you can think of this shape as actually being 3 squares that are overlaid on top of each other that have different rotations. In order to create the animation, I'm going to start off by making my @keyframes rule, and I'm going to call it spinner. In our @keyframes rule, I'm simply going to put a to property. I don't need to put from because I only need to track to. So I'm going to tell this to transform, and we'll tell it to rotate 1 turn. Now I'm going to go up to the starburst object, and I'll add in my animation properties. So we're going to start off by adding animation name, and this is going to be set to spinner. Then we'll add our animation duration, and let's make this play for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to add my animation iteration count, and I'm going to tell this to play infinitely so that it just continues to play over and over again. And finally, I'm going to add my animation timing function, and we're going to have this play in a linear fashion so that the speed is constant throughout. If I come back to my file and I refresh, you can see that this is simply going to play at a uniform speed. So it's just going to be playing continually on the page. So now what we're going to look at is we're going to look at that animation play state. The animation play state property has an initial value of running. So that's what's happening right now. While the animation play state value is set to running, the animation is just going to proceed as normal. The other value that you can pass in is going to be paused. And when we set it to paused, the animation is going to be paused. So you can see that the animation never starts at this point. Now I just applied the animation play state of paused to the starburst object, and that's because I'm going to make a rule for the starburst element on hover. And on hover, we're going to change our animation play state to running. This is going to force the animation to play when we hover over, and then when I am not hovering over, you can see how it becomes paused. So in this way, I can control when the animation is being applied to the element and when the element is going to be paused. There's all sorts of ways that you can incorporate this into your project. It works really well in conjunction with JavaScript, but I wanted to show you an example of how it works with pure CSS.